The NBA buyout market is kind of like the New Year's to what the trade deadline's Christmas is in the NBA. It's where like all of these established players, are released for contract or salary reasons, and now they're free to go pursue roles on winning teams. It's a great way for teams that have a lot of max contracts and stuff to go fill particular roles or vacancies that they have in their roster with guys that have proven and done it before. I figure what we could do in this video is we could kind of go through the couple guys that have already been picked up and where they're going and how that's going to impact them, as well as look at some of the guys that are still on the market, because it's not maybe as populated as maybe other years have been, but there's still some important guys to talk about. The first guy we're going to talk about is Kyle Lowry. Yeah, the Hornets weren't able to move his contract a second time like they were hoping to. Like, that's fine. We kind of all figured that'd be the case. It was a lot of money. We knew he'd hit the buyout market and he wasn't going to be interested in being traded to like some bum team or something like that. So Lowry's supposed to clear waivers by the end of today, and then he'll be free to sign with the Sixers and everything, and he can start playing for them, which is kind of a need for them. Cameron Payne's actually been playing pretty good for the Sixers so far. Cameron Payne's always got these little streaks that he goes on and everything, but they'd much rather have Kyle Lowry on the court because they did lose some depth. They could use a little more veteran presence on the court. The question that's going to be asked is like, is adding Kyle Lowry really enough to keep you in the playoff hunt in hopes that Embiid comes back? Because let's be honest, this whole season rides on whether or not Joel Embiid can come back for Philly. And, if he does, what shape is he in at that point, right? It's just, those are fair questions to ask. He's a big dude. He's coming off of surgery and everything. He's going to sit for a while. That's a lot to ask of someone. But bringing in Lowry, makes a lot of sense if you believe that he's going to come back and he's going to be able to contribute. After that, I don't know. It's a nice guy to have on the team. He's an effective player still. We can look at some of his numbers here. Like, obviously, this is the lowest scoring output he's had since like the really early days of his career, but he's still an effective player for the most part. You're still getting a 38% three-point shot. His effective field goal percentage is fine. The assist to turnover numbers still look fine. So like, there's not many complaints there. And in his time with the Heat this year, he's one of the few positives that they've had, because the Heat have struggled to find a lot of their defensive identity and stuff this year. But Lowry, while not a huge positive, was a positive while he was on the court, and they were a lot better with him on the court than when he was off the court. So Kyle Lowry can still contribute. He can still do a lot for this team. What role he kind of fits in, like as a backup guard, does he take Cameron Payne's minutes? I would be inclined to think so. Maybe you have to play them both because that's just how much depth you have in Philly. But he's probably going to be asked to take on a little bit bigger role. There's a huge scoring vacancy with Embiid gone. Obviously, Buddy Hield has taken up a lot of that so far. He's been great so far. Buddy Hield's had a lot more ball handling responsibilities than I thought he would have too. There's been times where he's just up top alone, isoing, going to work and stuff. And while he's proven to be pretty good at that in these couple games, I think it'll probably be better if someone like Lowry's running the show and finding guys like Buddy Hield. All right, the next guy we're looking at is Bismack Biyombo. While he wasn't necessarily part of the buyout market, he was a recent pickup by the Thunder. The Thunder tried pretty hard, it sounds like, to get like guys like Kelly Olynyk and just find some sort of veteran backup center presence, because they've got Jalen Williams, the taller Jalen Williams, running that right now. I personally don't think he's a very effective player. Like, he's a nice stretch big and everything. He does some solid things, all right, but like, he can't really put the ball on the floor, and he's not that athletic. And I don't know. I just feel like he's kind of a weird in-between big that I don't exactly know what his role is long term. In comes Bismack Biyombo. Does he immediately take up Jalen Williams' minutes? I don't know. I think a lot of people would be inclined to say no. I'd probably be more inclined to say yes right away. Whether or not they do that, I have no idea. But Bismack Biyombo is a very proven basketball player. He was drafted really high, and he was considered kind of a bust because he didn't develop into really anything all that crazy. But he's been a very, very, very consistent basketball player his entire career. You can just look at the numbers here. If you put Bismack Biyombo on the court, essentially he's going to get you 5 points, damn near 7 rebounds, and play very efficient basketball. He's a nice defender, too, because there's a lot of energy in his game, and he can get above the rim. He's an adequate shot blocker. There's a lot of reasons why Bismack Biyombo keeps getting picked up by teams. He had that one stretch with Toronto a couple years ago, and that's when he finally got his big contract or whatever, and then that was considered an overpay because that was the off season where everybody was getting overpaid or whatever. But Bismack Biyombo, you throw him on the court, good things happen, and he's very consistent. You even look at the on-off numbers from when he played with Memphis earlier this year. He got picked up by Memphis when they were kind of waiting for Ja to get back. Steven Adams went down out of nowhere, so they were like, okay, let's use this disabled player exception. Let's go get Biyombo. We know what he'll be for us, and he had some really good games for them just this year. But then when Ja went down, they were like, okay, like we're not going to win anything this year. Let's just end this here. We don't need to hold on to Biyombo right now, so they let him go. But I mean, you look at this, like the Grizzlies still weren't a good basketball team, but minus 7.4 when he's off the court versus minus 4.2 when he's on. It's a pretty big difference right there, right? Like that's big. I see Biyombo really roaming the paint a lot with this Oklahoma City Thunder team. The Thunder are very much, they like to get the ball, drive, kick out over and over and over again because they have so many guys that are so good at that, and that's why they wanted Olynyk. He would kind of fit into that still as a big man, kind of like what Chet's able to do. But what you'll be able to do with Biyombo is, one, have another rim protector who's a big, strong body, but you'll be able to have another rim runner, which I think is important for all these guys that are going and attacking the hoop all the time, because as soon as that help defender in the paint's got to take a step over, if they can just flick something up there and Biyombo's going to jump up there and go get it, that's just easier offense, and that's something you can't really do with Jalen Williams right now. So even if Biyombo doesn't necessarily get the playing time, I think it makes a lot of sense to have him on the team. One, you just need more vets on this team, right? But I do think he brings a dimension to their offense, and obviously solidifies them on defense if you do put him on the court. So I hope they give Biyombo the minutes, because I think his energy and his defensive prowess will be very valuable. Alrighty, the last particular signing we're going to talk about right now is Thaddeus Young signing with the Suns. Not one that I saw coming. Obviously, we didn't know that Thaddeus Young was on the trading block or anything. I shouldn't say he was on the trading block. He was used as a way to move other pieces around. But he hit the buyout market and he signed with the Suns. Now, the Suns moved a lot of players at the deadline. They brought in a couple more, but they maintained the ability to go sign some extra players. I think they had 2 open roster spots still by the end of it, which is huge for them. And, you know, they didn't have much of a bench at all. So being able to go get a vet like Thad Young to go play you 12, 13 minutes each game is pretty valuable. Now, is it like the most ideal fit in the world? Maybe not from like a typical offensive sense. Like you would probably want them to have a stretch 4 or something that can shoot. That's, I guess, the point of a stretch 4, right? What am I talking about? But like he's not a good 3-point shooter. Thaddeus Young has never really been a consistent 3-point shooter. When you look at his career numbers, I mean, I'm just doing a brief look right now. It looks like he got to 38% once, and that's on 1 attempt a game. That's just not really his game. What he is kind of like a second or third ball handler that you can somehow use as a hub when you have a lot of other talented players around you. There's a reason they called him Thagic Johnson for a little bit. But what I like about this is the fact that you can have guys like a Beal and Booker, or Beal, KD, however, whatever combo of those guys you want, and you can kind of have them moving off ball with Thad kind of running a bit of the offense a la Draymond Green at times, right? Because he's a pretty good defender as well. And you can run a lot of very simple actions that, you know, these older guys and these experienced scorers know how to play within. So you get stuff like that going, and I think Thad can be a valuable little cog in their offense to help initiate some things, since they really don't have a lot of point guard play on this team either. So I think that's kind of an underrated aspect of his game that he can bring to Phoenix. And then, like I said, it's just experience on the team as well, right? They didn't have a ton of that once you went to the bench. Like, there's not a lot of vets on this team or anything. So you're bringing that in, a guy that's going to play some defense, help distribute the ball to your 3-4 scorers, right? And he's just not going to make a lot of mistakes. And that's what you need from a guy towards the end of your bench. I was looking at the like lineup combos for him this year, and some of the lineups that worked well for him is when he played like small ball 5. That's a lot of what he was doing this year. So I think that's an interesting way to kind of look at him and play him. Like, you see, you've got shooters around you here. There wasn't a ton of minutes played, obviously, this season. Like, he wasn't a big part of the rotation or whatever. But I think he'll slide into the rotation in Phoenix. So there isn't much else for them to go to on their bench. So, you know, you put enough shooters and capable scorers around him, I think you're going to see some effective basketball get played. So these are the reported buyouts that we saw so far, at least. And just looking at these, like obviously Lowry, Dinwiddie's already happened. Marcus Morris is available. I don't know if he's actually been bought out from the Spurs yet. I believe it's just like he's believed to. So I have a little bit of inside knowledge that it sounds like he might be going to like Minnesota or something like that, which is probably not a bad fit. They could use some like 3-4 play, especially since they got Monte Morris now. They kind of filled that backup guard role. I'd still like to see them go get like another shooter or something, but just the intensity of Marcus Morris on that team, I think, would be electric. Like I've always said, if you take Anthony Edwards and just put dogs around him, you're going to win basketball games. Like I just think that's the way to go, and Marcus Morris fits that role. Joe Harris, historically great shooter and everything, had a lot of ankle problems this year, and that's why he hasn't found a ton of consistency. I could see a team like Denver or something picking him up, maybe giving him another shot. I bet you somebody will, maybe like the Celtics or something like that, as a Sam Hauser reserve or something like that. I don't know. I'll be curious to see what happens to Joe. You look at Killian Hayes. I don't think anybody's touching Killian Hayes this year. I just don't think they are. Robin Lopez, probably not. Victor Oladipo, most likely not, because he's injured for the rest of the season. Gallinari is probably someone that could get picked up. Maybe he goes back to the Celtics after, it was a big deal when the Celtics signed him last year, and then he tore the ACL and he was never really able to suit up, and they traded him as part of the Porzingis trade. Maybe now he gets the chance to do that. He's kind of fits a role that they don't necessarily have, which is kind of that stretch big. Like I shouldn't say stretch big, but like a stretch 4 or something like that. Porzingis is more of a 5, and he's a little more mobile than that. But I could see Gallinari fitting into that role. If not, maybe someone like the Miami Heat or something like that is kind of like another Kevin Love type. So I don't know. I could see that. The last couple, Korkmaz still has a lot of like juice left in the tank is the thing, and that's where he could be interesting to some teams. I don't even know, like an initial team doesn't necessarily come to mind for Korkmaz. I'm just looking at rosters right now. Like Timberwolves would be a solid pick just to have kind of another shooter on the team. Maybe Clippers do it for depth. Korkmaz has always wanted minutes, though, is the thing. So that's why I don't think the Bucks maybe as much, but I don't know. Maybe the Magic give him a deal or something. I don't know, because they play Caleb Houston a little bit right now, so maybe I could see that. But I don't know. There's not an obvious fit for him necessarily. Maybe the Suns pick him up too if they still have another open roster spot. Just having another shooter and a guy that's going to bring at least a little bit of energy and a little bit of size at the wing. Like, sure, fair enough. Then James Bucknight, I would have to imagine he's not getting picked up by another NBA team. Obviously, he's had some off-court issues as well, so I think people aren't touching that. Corey Joseph, if somebody desperately needs like reserve point guard minutes, you can go after Corey Joe. I would say he's pretty much run out of gas at this point. He's not too effective of a player at this point in his career, so I'd find it hard to believe that somebody picks him up at this point. But yeah, y'all, that's kind of our update to the buyout market and everything. I think it's kind of a dead year. Obviously, the trade deadline wasn't quite as exciting. As like a more in-tune basketball fan than I am, I enjoy all the little moves and like the little adjustments. Like that's why I got so hyped for the Daniel Gafford trade. I'm like, oh, as a basketball coach, plugging Gafford in to this Mavericks team just makes so much sense, and it's such a perfect plug and play. But that's just me, and obviously this buyout market isn't too interesting. We haven't seen like any of these guys really suit up yet or anything, but I'll be curious to see how it all unfolds. I'm sure 2 or 3 of these guys are still going to get picked up, and they'll be able to contribute to those teams. Will I probably do videos on any more of these guys? Probably not, but you guys let me know. Yeah, thanks so much for watching, y'all. In the meantime, we're just going to keep covering more basketball stuff as it happens. We might get back to the analysis side of things, deep diving into players and stuff like that now that the typical news cycle is dying down. And then you guys let me know. I'm thinking about restarting the My GM 2K series and everything. If you guys have thoughts or opinions on that, if you have a particular team you want to see me rebuild, if you enjoyed the Wizards series, let me know. I'm thinking about bringing it back. So you guys just let me know, and happy to provide. But thanks so much, y'all. Bye.